did hiccup. Wow, interesting. Did you know there's such a thing as a metal Glock magazine? Well, there is now. Mec-Gar is making these metal magazines. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but today we're going to try them out. We're going to see if they work. Now, I do have a few handguns here that obviously take Glock magazines, but something interesting I found out with these in relation to the rifle that's back there in that bag. We're going to check that out a little later as well. I'm going to be using some Remington 115 grain UMC, nothing special, running through and testing these out. As far as the handguns, I've got my Gen 3 Glock 17L, got my Gen 2 Glock 17, and then got the Gen 3, let's just say compatible Kiger 9C Pro, which is basically a G19 profile. Now, as far as the differences between the G17 and the G19 version, pretty much the same as all other Glock magazines. The G17 version is going to fit in the G19. You're just going to have a little bit of a gap. And because you've got the kind of extended floor plate on the G19, obviously it's not going to fit into a G17. So let me get my ear pro on and we will get to work. Yeah, I'm still running the stuff from Pro here. I have really enjoyed it. We'll start out with the fun one here, I'm going to say, the G17L. We're just going to go a slow fire here. My dot is not on. There we go. Just a slow fire, nothing fancy schmancy. Did have a hiccup. Had a hiccup a few rounds in. Now, with the comp on this G17L, it can be a little ammo picky, so that may have not been the magazine. It could have been that ammo. So let's load up a few more rounds and we will kind of go through, do a little bit of a rapid fire with it. All right, got a few more rounds loaded up here. And we'll just kind of speed through this, see if it hiccups again. Here we go. And it did hiccup. Wow, interesting. They're locking back fine. So, because this one is so special, let's move on to the Gen 2, just a 17. Nothing fancy schmancy about it, and see how it does. All right, OG Gen 2 time here. Again, just going to go kind of a slow fire. Had no problems there. Let's do a little rapid fire with it. All right, a little bit faster now. See what happens. And it ran fine. Okay, so the Mec-Gar steel mags here fit fine. They fit fine in both the G17L as well as the OG G17 here. They lock up fine. We had no problems in this 17. So my thoughts, and I need this magazine back. My thoughts is we're probably running into an ammo issue with that Remington UMC in the 17L, and I mean you can obviously see why, right? Now, as far as the G19 goes, the only thing that I've got around is going to be this G19 profile, the Kiger 9C Pro. Phenomenal, phenomenal handgun. That's what we're going to use to check out the steel G19 magazines. Fits good. The lockup's good. Let's do a little bit of a slow fire. All went well. We've got locked back. Pretty cool. Slowed back up and do it a little faster. All right, going quicker with the Kiger 9C Pro and the metal magazines. Here we go. No problems. Before we move on, I need to run get something. I want to try one more thing before we get to the rifle that's in that bag. All right, since everything ran fine with the G17, I ran in and I got some of the Igman 124 grain stuff from our friends at Global Ordnance. This typically runs really well in that 17L, so we're going to load it up. We're going to try that one more time just to be fair. All right, one more time. We'll go rapid fire with this Igman and the 17L here. Here we go. Boom, flawless. So not the metal magazine there. It was that Remington UMC 115 grain. I thought it might be, so I'm really glad that we gave that another shot. All right, now we need to break out that rifle bag. I got something really interesting about these magazines, confusing even, that I want to show you. By the way, if you're curious about this rifle bag right here, it's a pretty decent little bag. Got a ton of features on it. There'll be a link down, probably in a pinned comment below, and you can check all that out. But the question is, what do we have in here, and what exactly is the hang up? So what we have in here is my Anderson AM9 9mm carbine. Now, I told you this was going to be strange, so here we go. I'm going to lock the bolt back. And this thing does take Glock magazines, just to prove that. Magazine out of the 17L. It's in there. It's locked up. All is good. The OG magazine out of the 17. It's locked up. It's in there. No problem. The magazine out of the Anderson. Yeah, both Anderson. Anderson Kiger 9C Pro. Locks up. It's in there. No problem. Now, check this out. Metal mag, Mec-Gar, G19. Nothing. It's like it's hitting a solid wall when it goes in there. Nothing. G17 version. Same thing. Same exact thing. Now, I've taken both of these magazines. And yeah, obviously we can't put rounds through this with the metal mags today. It's definitely a problem. I can't figure out what the problem is, though. I have taken and measured dimensions on these metal magazines, compared them to the poly magazines. Now, the Kiger 9C Pro is running a P-Mag, and the 17L and the 17 are running OEMs. I've taken measurements on the poly mags at many multiple points on these magazines. They're smaller. The metal magazines are in every dimension. There is a little bit of difference with some of the radii. What's the word for that? A little bit of difference there. Maybe that's where it lies. A little bit of difference in like the cutout for the follower and some things like that. But there's bound to be something up with the lower here. It's the only explanation with the lower here. It's creating a point that is absolutely solidly hanging up with these metal magazines. So if you have an Anderson AM9, at least for now, and I have made Anderson aware of the issue. I don't have a really good relationship with Mec-Gar, unfortunately. So, but if I see them coming up at the in-round event or something like that, I may mention to them, hey, these don't work in the AM9, and I can't figure out why, and see what they say. But I know the guys over there at Anderson, super awesome folks, and maybe they can figure it out. But I gotta figure it's some type of a issue with the tolerance somewhere, maybe in the mag well, just the design on the lower on the AM9. That being said, as you can see, we gave the 17L a second chance. It ran fine. 17 ran fine. The Kiger 9C Pro ran fine. Now, again, does it make a difference if your Glock magazine is metal? At the end of the day, probably just a preference thing. They're likely going to take a little bit more of a beating, not be as susceptible maybe to the elements and things like that. Uh, but at the end of the day, that's just got to be your call.